Today is the 5th day of the May 86 retreat. Many different questions have come up about attention. Some may be more related than others. We'll see whether we can bring them all together in this talk. If not, there's another day. One question was, you say so much, listen to the birds, or listen to the sound of the water going down to the creek. Is that listening to the birds and to the sound of the water not the same as a mantra which one can use to get away from one's thoughts? Many questions have concerned effort. It seems so unbelievable or impossible that there could be attention without effort. It seems so exhausting to pay attention. Not everybody uses that word, but it seems to require tremendous effort, which often one feels one can't make or doesn't want to make. Or just wondering, why is it always said that attention is without effort, when one's own experience seems to be to the contrary? Similar question was, why is attention so strenuous and thinking so easy? One person new to a center such as this, new to a meditation retreat, it's always delightful to hear some fresh question or remark. And this person said, why are people sitting in here all the time? Are they conditioned from Zen centers? May not start with any of these questions, but maybe we can try to look together to find out as we go along together what attention is, whether we can nail it. That's a bad word. Come upon it, understand it, get a feeling for it. And at the same time, become clear in the mind what the difference is between attending and thinking. Because it's very crucial that there be clarity about what is thinking and what is attending. Because very easily we deceive ourselves thinking we're attending while we're thinking. Thinking about ourselves and at the same time assuming that we're aware immediately, directly of ourselves. We can start with what's right under our foot, nose, or hand, this here. I think everybody is sitting on this thing here. And if one directs the head in this direction, maybe goes over this with a hand, there is something here. It has a sound to it. If we went far enough, maybe we shouldn't. It has a smell to it. There's a color. The texture. A certain feel to it. There's a shape to it. It's got an underside. There's something like a seam here. And we call this thing a mat. I've used words all along: texture, smell, color, seam, shape, feel. Mat. Does one see that this, that, and that is not the word mat? That the word mat is not this. That the word mat is a word which we have learned. We have memory of that word. If we spoke another language, we would use a different word for it. That word too would not be this. Can one see that the moment one thinks mat, one is removed from this? That the thought of the word mat is different from this here. And that the moment one starts associating the word mat with Zen mat, brown mat that we've had at the Rochester Zen Center, there is further and further removal from this. If one comes to the association Zen Center, one may think, I don't like brown mats. They make me remember things that happened on the mat I don't want to remember. Then a reaction sets in, which has nothing to do with this thing here. Do you see that immediately? That the association, mat, Zen Center, whatever experiences and memories one may have very good experiences and memories, that is a train of associated thought taking place in the memory, in the brain, and has nothing to do with this thing here. Do you see that? I think that's very simple and clear. But you have to see it for yourself, not just say that the words follow clearly, one after another, and there's a certain logicalness to it, but to see for oneself that remembering a mat from the past and having associations with that mat, memories and feelings, emotions, is not this. What this is, volumes could be written about it, but it's still not this. Do you see that? Liking it or disliking it is a movement of the mind and body. for it, against it. The word can trigger emotions, we have seen that. Pleasant memories, unpleasant memories. The emotion that has been triggered, maybe a intestinal rumble, or heartbeat, is what? Can one feel it when it happens? Sense it, experience it, whatever word one wishes to use. The word intestinal rumble or sick stomach or heart palpitation is not what's actually going on. The word is not the real happening. To really be in touch with the real happening, the word has to go. Do you see that? That the word is removed from the real happening. It is a process that takes place in the brain, in a certain part of the brain. Because if one is very well versed with physiology, anatomy, one will say the heartbeat also has a concomitant process in the brain. And yet, there's no question about the fact that the word heartbeat is not this thing that is palpable. Listen. The sound "chi-chi" is not the word bird song. Listen. That's that. To say a bird is singing is a different process. Language, thoughts, memory, knowledge. And if that sound is heard, and immediately the word bird comes up, and with it an association. How nice it always is to hear the birds, and why don't I hear birds at home? My office has no windows. What a shame. I wish I could be here all the time, etc., etc. Then that isn't heard anymore, even though it's right there. The brain may faintly register it, because that's what it does. But it is sort of an ignored background noise. In sitting, one finds that, not just in sitting, we're sitting right now. That's what I'm talking about. One finds that thoughts are going through the mind. One finds thoughts are going through the mind as one is walking. And then one may remember, Toni said, listen to the birds. It's a thought. So, for a moment, one listens to the birds. And for an instant, that listening, the sound, the immediate perception of it, puts an end to the train of thought. Then the thought may arise, if I could listen to these birds all the time, or to whatever sounds there are, then I wouldn't have all of these thoughts. This would take the place of thoughts. And that's what I did when I was practicing a mantra, repeating Om all all during my sitting, or mu. Mu is not considered a mantra, but it is very often used like a mantra. Just repeating some syllable. It's getting complex. The mind is concentrating on the syllable. There is purpose and intention in doing this. One is bringing effort and willpower to it, to concentrate on the syllable, and uses the syllable to cut away the thoughts that may come up. This has nothing to do with an open awareness of a bird singing, even though at the moment of perceiving the sound, thought is interrupted. But if one started to make an exercise or a practice out of concentrating on the bird sound, bringing will power to bear on it, which means a goal in mind, to get a concentrated mind, to be rid of thought, then indeed it may be possible to control thought in that way by strenuously listening to the sound of birds, or the sound of water, or the sound of cars, whatever sounds there are. But this is not what is talked about here in listening to the sounds. We're not suggesting that one listen to the sounds of a bird in order to concentrate the mind, in order to get rid of thoughts, in order to advance in one's practice, in order to get enlightenment, a state of samadhi or whatever, but because it's there. It's actually happening. And if the mind is caught up in its words and associations and memories and emotions that these memories evoke, then what is there, what is actually there, is ignored. One is operating in a closed system. Like in a video room, in a tight compartment in which videos are constantly being played with the emotions that they evoke. Soundproof. I wonder whether this has been clarified, that even though at the moment of hearing a bird sing, thought is absent, or maybe totally still, it's not the same as using the mind to concentrate upon a sound, a syllable, in order to achieve an imagined goal, attain a projected end state or result. Then there is concentration going on, which immediately involves control, exclusion of what is not, what is seen as distraction. If one is concentrating on a mantra, one would purposely exclude listening to the birds. That would be a distraction. It would distract from concentrating the mind completely, or as completely as possible, on the syllable and generating energy that way. We started with this here. One can feel it under one's knees. There's something else under the bottom, which is called a pillow, but the word pillow is not what one feels underneath one's bottom. In being aware of this as it is, not the idea of a mat, but how it feels. Is one concentrating on this or just openly aware of this here, the way it feels, which by no means excludes and the sound of wind in the trees, the feel of the breeze, the sweat under the arms if there is any. And immediately realizing that the word cool breeze or wind in the trees is not what's happening. The word buzzing bee is not what's going on there. That sound that was just made is also not what's going on there. To find out what's going on there, do we realize that words get in the way? Knowledge about bees and birds and wind and trees gets in the way. It's a different process, which can be very entertaining to think about all of that and to associate memories. We talked about that yesterday. What these waving trees remind me of, the most marvelous day I had with my friend under such a waving tree. Gets in the way of just listening simply, unobstructedly, purposelessly, and effortlessly to what's actually happening, with no goal in mind. Not that I'll get enlightened from that. That gets in the way. Do you see that? Listen. That doesn't interfere with here, the feeling under the bottom and the knees. Or does it? You may say, to you, it doesn't seem to interfere. For me, it interferes. Then let's look what it is that interferes. I didn't say that clearly. The sound of the bird and the feeling of sitting here, the coolness, all of that, is not interfering with each other. It's not separate from each other. It's all perceptible as one whole ongoing process. And if you say, for me, this is not one whole ongoing process. I can be with the feeling of the knees on the mat, that I can feel, but then I don't hear the bird. And if I listen to the bird, then I don't feel this. Then I ask, why not? What's in the way? Is it that one labels this knee and mat and that bird, and one says, here I am, and outside is what's going on as far as sounds are concerned? Is thought and knowledge structuring something and therefore compartmentalizing it, dividing it? Because thought, thinking, cannot perceive the whole. It can't. It can only think one thought after another, label one thing after another. Thought in its very way of functioning is divisive. fragmenting, is a fragment itself. So watch for yourself, whether it is the labeling of the mat, the labeling of tree and wind and airplane that makes these separate events. And whether one can say, how is it when there's just listening and trying it again, doing it over, putting the words aside, seeing what words are, and seeing that the word is not maybe here we come to this question asked all the time. This is effort, isn't it, to do that? Maybe right now in doing it, one realized for a moment that there was no effort. So why is it effort as one is sitting on the mat, caught in the stream of thoughts? As one person said it, it's so easy to think. That is the effortless thing. It just goes on smoothly. I think this way we're on the right track. Thinking has gone on, certainly all of our lifetime, and all our parents' lifetime, and their parents' lifetime, and as long as human beings have been around, and there's some kind of thinking going on in the higher animals, chimps and gorillas, maybe dolphins and the function of the brain is to think, to make us secure by knowing what something is. We don't have to be bitten by a snake twice. The brain remembers it. Because if we're dead, then the memory of that brain is kaput. But we can tell our children and our sisters and brothers about snakes, and that can be deposited in the brain. It can be remembered. And the next time something looks like what that memory image is, that the two of them jive, then one gets out of the way. So there's a very self-preserving function to the brain, to memory. And because of this memory, we have been able to create a staggering technology and art, language, poetry. In sitting on the mat, these memories regale us or frighten us. Maybe they don't, somebody may say, this isn't neither regales me nor frightens me, but it's going on. Just a stream of memories. Although if one is a little attentive to what the topics are, one may find oneself in there most of the time as the hero or the villain. What I did, should have done, want to become, what I want to have right now, rather than sitting here on the mat. Projecting desirable states, all connected with what one has already experienced or remembered from reading, from movies or magazines. And this is a very habitual process. It's nothing new. It is well greased, well oiled. The tracks are smooth. Doing this work, hearing talks, having read books, the thought comes up, I shouldn't have thoughts, I should rather pay attention. Isn't there at that moment a resistance to leave that smooth, well-oiled track? Not that one thinks this all out, but isn't it so? This is what is easy, what is habitual, what is fairly safe, and what has been done over and over again. There is familiarity and security in it. And the thought, I should now do something different, I should pay attention, or I must pay attention. The more the determination, the willpower to get out of that, to do something else, the more the resistance to doing it. I think that can be tested out, whether this is so. That the moment one says, I must not do this, something which is attractive, desirable, habitual, safe, there's resistance to not continuing that, to do something else. Automatically. Because the energy runs on that smooth, oiled track. Not just on one, the channels constantly switch, like on TV, home box. This is what we're in. We're in the home box. With all our tracks of memories and desires and fears, visualizations, switching channels. Sort of, there must be some scanning for the most desirable thought train. That's not all consciously taking place, but it's happening. One can witness that there has been all this switch of channels. One has been from this to that. And then the thought, I must pay attention. When one approaches attention in this way, I must not do this, but I must do that, there is inevitably resistance. Anything we have to do, we resist. I think this is generally true, isn't it? Has been like this since we were little children. Told we should stop playing and get ready because mom has to go shopping. Is this why one feels that attention is effort? Because we want to be attentive or feel we should or ought to be attentive, while something else is going on that is familiar, smooth, habitual, well-greased. look at it. There's a lot of time to look at these things. It's not, sitting is not a matter of putting in time. One may have read and heard this, that the more one sits, the more the Buddha nature completes itself, just through sitting. But something has to go on. There has to be some deepening of understanding of how we live, what this brain does, how we're affected by our thoughts, directed, dominated, driven. How all of our emotions are linked up with this process of thinking. How wanting is intimately related with thinking. One thought of a desirable object or person and wanting may take rise, involving the whole organism. The thought may not have been perceived. One says, well, this sort of comes up naturally in me, desire. And one hasn't observed the whole process from beginning to end. That there was a thought of oneself with a desired object or person that triggered this whole process through all the associations which go faster than thought. Is attention effort? Is the question most frequently asked these days. Or what is effortless attention? Let us say one is immersed in a train of thought, and suddenly there is awareness of this immersion. Suddenly one comes to, hey, for I don't know how long I've been dreaming. Did this instant of attention, of awareness, come through any kind of effort? Did one will that, intend that, bring it about? Or did it happen one knows not how? There one is, realizing one has dreamt for the last 5 minutes or whatever time. That instant happened, I think, is marvelous. It's absolutely it's unexplainable. It's amazing. So rather than stay with this amazement, mind you, I'm not giving a new method to work with. Rather than, there's been dreaming, what's actually going on? This kind of a state of amazement and the open listening. Rather than that, we immediately evaluate what we've been doing and think of what we should have been doing instead, namely being attentive, and a new channel is starting. What I should be doing channel. What I should not have been doing. And the attention is blown, it's gone. We're again thinking. Do you see that? And will you see it as it happens? To be aware of the new channel that's there. I should be attentive. I must muster more energy to be attentive. It's thinking. And yet, if that channel is miraculously interrupted, when one comes to, when there's awareness that one has been dreaming, And there's no reflection of what should I have been doing or what should I do now. There's just a wondering what is really going on. Then the energies which go either back into the channel of dreaming or into the channel of I shouldn't be dreaming, those energies are free. They're free, they're released, they're there. And those energies are attention. Attention is energy. I would not deny that. Effort implies I, as I feel myself so insufficient and inadequate, must make an effort to become more adequate, more attentive. Then there is a tremendous amount of thought, memory, habit, conditioning involved. And that's not this attention that is being talked about. In that attention which is talked about, such a train of thought as, I should really not have dreamt, I must shape up and attend, this very train of thought would reveal itself in attention, in awareness. One would see that. One would wake up to the fact that this has taken place, because while it's taking place, there is no attention. If there's awareness, one realizes this is what I've been thinking. And to see that as a thought, which is a conditioned thought, pounded into us since we've been little. You must do this, you must not do that. And if you do this and not do that, then you will get a reward. Mom and Dad will love you. At least they will smile rather than frown. That's already enough for a little child. One could say, and maybe this is in some of our mind right now, why don't I wake up more often, effortlessly? One has to ask then, why do I ask this question? Is it because I'm disgusted at myself? And to see that, if that is so, that there's self-image involved, bad self-image and wanting to have a better one, namely waking up more often as a better image. Is that involved that one asks the question about? Or does one want to know, how can I bring this about? That's a conditioned channel of thinking. It's only when all the channels are quiet, they have nothing more to offer, they're seen for what they are, and the mind, the brain, really slows and quiets down. And then attention is without effort, but not without energy. Also, if this question, why don't I wake up more often? Why do I sleep most of the time, dream, fantasize? If that comes from no place special. Not I want to be a better person, I want to have a better image of myself, I want to be good, I want to be as good as the others. That is seen as so many channels that waste energy. The question is of a very serious nature and comes out of having understood how detrimental, divisive, and isolating it is to constantly live in one's pleasurable and unpleasurable thinking channels. And that all the stupidities that we do commit, light ones and serious ones, come out of this state of inattention and fantasizing and thinking and willing and fearing. When this, out of one's direct observation, becomes very clear, then that question, why do I sleep most of the time? Why not wake up more frequently? Why not become aware? That question has no motive and no goal. It has a pure quality. One doesn't know why, but one asks. And asking without motive and without knowing whether it will indeed bring a result, when that question nags, nag is not a serious enough word. It infuses one's life. Then attention comes. Because one realizes what happens when there's no attention, when there's just a wallowing or sliding, drifting in inattention. So from this one sees that this work here is not just sitting a retreat, or taking walks and listening to the incredible sounds and taking in these indescribable fragrances from the flowers, the sound of the insect and the water down the cascade, or that airplane overhead. It's part of the silence, isn't it? One may realize that this work is not just that, it is one's daily life. If there's not attention and questioning how one lives from moment to moment in one's daily life, from which this here is not separate, then one is just engaged in a pastime, and nothing much changes. Nothing changes. The well-oiled grooves continue. This is not said judgmentally, but it is so. And it is for each one to find out for themselves. Not taking my word for it, that would become another groove. We will end here for today.